Went to the gin with a load of cotton, and I'd been reading Dracula, and there I was in the dark by myself. Had a lamp.
Well, I can remember Maxine the other day when you was doing something. It reminded me so much.
You said when I went to look out the door.
Yeah, I remember you looking out the window, looking out those windows, and that storm was coming.
You to even,
You know,
Well,
it's the strangest thing, the things that sticks in your memory.
I know it, but if you're a little bitty kid, and I couldn't have been very old.
And that's why you need to be careful what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
around kids.
Yeah, I had a guy tell me, he said, it doesn't matter what happens to these little kids. They never know the difference.
Oh.
They won't remember any of it.
Oh,
And that's just
is
not
so
true.
wrong.
You don't have any idea. Like, you was talking about, was it Aunt Nettie, or I believe it was, whichever one lived over there close to the
Lived
river.
in just a little cabin.
I can remember a bunch of different things from over at her house.
Can you remember that I said something, I don't know what you were doing, but she didn't like the way I spoke to you, and she really let me know that wasn't the way you
Spoke to
to
Paul or Wallace?
to Paul.
She's kind of took my side in.
And
But now, did she dip snuff?
uh,
Well, who did? There was somebody did, because we
Grandma
got
did. Grandma
we got those
Rich.
glasses. Remember, we had glasses for a long time from
Well,
somebody's
no,
dipping
Aunt
snuff.
Lady did have snuff glasses, and she did
Not
give
been
us.
for me because I had all of my brackets.
Yeah,
Snuff
Mom
glasses,
drank it.
and I may have given you some.
I know we used to have. At one time had a bunch of
They
us.
made dandy jelly glasses. That's,
Yeah.
Until
There's
I
good
didn't know there was
drink out of
anything. I didn't realize people would be offended. And I made jelly one year and gave all of Charles's brothers and their wives
Oh, and gave it in
6 or
snuff
8,
glasses.
10 glasses of that jelly. And one in particular didn't want to eat the jelly because
I wonder what they'd think if Grandma Rich was going to come see us. Then as kids would have our instructions. Go out and find a small mesquite root. They had to be pretty pliable and not too big around. And we would have to chew the ends of them to make a brush out of the mesquite root, so that when Grandma Rich came to see us, she'd have her snuff dipping brush, and she would dip it in Garrett's snuff and then put it in her jaw.
Garrett's sweets.
Yeah, Garrett's sweet snuff. And they also kept a bottle of whiskey in the cabinet,
Just for her, huh?
just for her, because every night she had a hot toddy. And Mama, you couldn't have hired her
I
to.
know they kept whiskey.
And that was her mother's, your mother's mother?
No, my daddy's.
Oh, uh-huh. So she couldn't say anything really about it.
And to tell the truth about it. Now, Mama's folks were gentle, and so I was told was very religious. That one of the things that they did love to do the most, they had an organ, and I guess it was Grandpa that played, and they would all sing together. They were singers, and we thought Grandma Rich
Eddie was
was.
a singer too. I mean, that was our amusement, was singing.
Yeah. All of our life, playing games and singing was, and having a contest with our friends who could have the most paper dolls, which wasn't paper dolls that you buy at the store. You cut them out of catalogs, Sears and Roebuck or Montgomery Ward or later on Spiegel. And the one, it was a point of pride if you could have more paper dolls.
Well,
The other kids
and
were.
we kept them in. Mama would buy thread, and you got it in boxes. What would you say, about a dozen spools per box or something like that? It's about as long as that picture, and we kept our paper dolls in that. And Belle and I were going to had to herd cows, and we would take a family of paper dolls to. Well, they were going on a plane ride, and it got too windy. And we did get back with all our
And
tape dogs.
that's one time they really flew.
So we had to have
We gathered up people all over that pasture.
Well, what'd you do? Just throw them up in the air? Or
No, they just
No,
blew
they-
away from
yeah,
us.
blew away.
But we were pretending that they were going on a plane ride, and they really did go on a ride.
And Maxine may be was too young to remember, but when we still lived on the farm at Cary, there was a chinaberry tree and a hackberry trees, and when it would rain, that clay dirt down there would just make a crust, and that made the best cookies and crackers and just all kind of things for the playhouse. And we had a playhouse in the barn, and my two oldest brothers, they liked to keep hounds so they could go rabbit hunting at night with guns and those hounds. And we had just got our playhouse fixed so good, and they put those hounds in there, and it was a mess in more ways than one. We got it cleaned up, and we were going to have a wedding. Well, I was the bride, and what they had done was put a board on a brick or something. Well, I sat down on one end a little more than the other, and it threw me off. And the bride was really crying, and they all laughed at me. Now, why I would remember that, but I remember the smell of those stupid dogs and me getting thrown on my can on my wedding day.
Well, anytime you get embarrassed, though, it's
Yeah,
more
to
memorable.
remember it.
you really remember it.
Do you remember us making mud pies there at Wellman and decorating them with beargrass blooms, those
Yeah.
white blooms?
And
Boy, that-
gourds made good pickles. They kind of stunk, but they made good pickles.
But the most memorable time, I guess, was when Lita Nanny gave us a permanent using cockleburrs.
Yeah, now
Ooh.
that was back down at Cary.
No,
Yes, it was.
Belle, I don't remember anything about
Well, you
Cary.
were just little, but
Yeah.
that was at Cary.
I don't think
Of
so.
course, we had plenty of cockleburrs at Wellman too. But anyway, back then, the women's favorite hairdo, they called it finger waves, and it was tiny waves all over the head. Well, they gave us a finger wave with cockleburrs, just made
Using
roses and
cockleburrs
things.
for
So it was about time for Mama to come home, so they started trying to get them out of our hair. Well, they would brag on me for being so good and nearly pull me bald-headed. But Maxine, they had to cut some of them out.
And your mom found that out, I imagine.
Well, how could she not? And I'm sure we had a sad tale to tell when. And Mama had gone to work in the field and had left our lunch dishes on the table, and those stupid dogs got in and knocked them off and broke her dishes. And dishes, you didn't just have them everywhere then, like you do now. And I couldn't have been more than 5 years old, but I remember Mama's dishes. And I remember the odor of what they called an acre weed. And she was helping head maize in that field when she first got asthma that killed her. And that, yeah. And you walked through it, and it was everywhere. That's why they called it acre weeds, because it just covered the field by the acre. And when you walked through it, just a dust would rise. And yeah, it was bad. But back those days,
you just did what you had
you
to
did what you had to do, and it didn't have to be easy, and it didn't have to be pleasant.
No.
And we always wondered how our older brothers could find anything for those hounds to eat. We wouldn't have cared if they starved to death, but because they caused us so much misery.